Welcome back to your Pig Trail Show. Will Monclair alongside Kevin McPherson, who we've got on the phone today. Kev, I can't believe that we don't have any fresh basketball to talk about, but it doesn't mean that there's nothing to talk about in the basketball world. Obviously, a lot of things happening, a lot of announcements coming out on players, whether they're coming back or they're not. Nice to hear that Trevin Brazil's coming back. Devo, some news on him as well. Which player would you like to jump into first when it comes to trending Arkansas Razorback news?
Yeah, well, the first name and the first thing we heard a few days ago was Nick Smith Jr., which was fully expected entering the NBA draft. He's had NIL agent representation through Clutch Sports, which is Rich Paul, Los Angeles based, arguably the most influential agent for basketball players in the game right now. And he's not coming back to Arkansas. He's not looking to leave the door cracked for a return. He's moving on to his NBA career. So Nick Smith Jr. was the first off the board. Then we learned that Trevin Brazil had made the decision to come back to school. Now, it's not that it's a surprise, but before he got hurt, he was on a track and on pace maybe to be a first round pick at the end of this season going into the 2023 draft. And so you always in the back of your mind know all it takes is one or two teams that want you to come out now to persuade and guarantee a pick and guaranteed contract. And so by his announcement, his intentions are to come back. I think you still have to pay attention as we move forward. Could there be anything to change that thinking and his decision and his process, which could always be one or two teams jumping out through back channels to say we want you now. But I think it was good news for Arkansas. It helps Arkansas's transfer portal recruiting as well. When a guy that's a centerpiece of your front line, Merrick Melsman last year called him one of the top 5 players in the SEC. He's got athletic qualities and length and size similar to a Daniel Gafford, a pro hog. And he's got some skill level, especially facing the basket, that's similar to pro hog Bobby Portis. And so those are big statements to make about a player. So it's very important and was a key for Arkansas for Trevin Brazil to make that announcement. 6'10", 7'4" wingspan, bouncy. And I mentioned that face-up skill. He can knock down some threes. Had a respectable 37% percentage through 8 games, not shooting from three. And then the last name, you mentioned Devo Davis. This weekend, he put out a late night announcement that he's going to test the NBA waters and leave open the door for a potential return. So maintaining his eligibility for his final senior season. So we'll keep an eye on Devo Davis. Based on what I'm hearing, it may be more likely that he stays and continues on for his professional career. But those calculations can change too based on feedback and other things. And for some guys at a certain point when they've played like he has for 3 years in college, it's not even necessarily about their draft ability in the NBA draft, but other options to play professionally and begin that chapter of their career. And we've seen other players take a more difficult route once they got into pro ball, whether it was G League, overseas, some other options to work their way into the NBA. And so those are all things he'll be considering. But Devo Davis did make his announcement, within the last couple of days that he's entering the NBA draft, testing the waters, and leaving the door open for a return. We'll see what he does. So that's news on 3 guys, and there's much more to come. When you think about it, Will, we know there's some more names that we're going to be here in the next few days, and we can talk about that a little bit if you've got time.
Yeah, absolutely. Ricky Council, Jordan Walsh, just some other names maybe off the top of my head here. Do you think there's going to be another name that we hear in the near future of I'll be coming back here to Arkansas?
Yeah, so I think one of the things Anthony Black, we haven't talked about him, and he's a guy similar to Nick Smith Jr. all season long. First round draft projections, mostly top 10-ish lottery pick projections. So I think we're going to hear Anthony Black put his name, going to announce that he's going to put his name in the NBA draft. I believe that's coming in the next few days. We'll see what happens there, but within the next week or so. But I do believe he's going to do that. I also believe, I don't know this, but I believe that he will, be a true one and done. Arkansas's had one in school history, Moses Moody a couple of years ago. Nick Smith Jr. is the second. I think Anthony Black's going to be the third. Now we'll see what he does. We'll see what his announcement is. And does he leave the door cracked for a potential return? I just don't think so. I think he's going to move on. But that's Anthony Black. You mentioned Ricky Council and Jordan Walsh. I think it's 60-40 Ricky Council. I think it's probably the percentage is even higher that he's going to at least test the draft waters. But I think it's 60-40 that he pursues a pro career versus coming back. But it's still, that's the percentage I see it as right now, which means there's, I guess the potential for a return. We'll see what he announces in the coming days.
Yeah. Were you surprised when you saw the draft projections recently and AB projected higher than Nick Smith Jr.?
No, because I think there might be some questions surrounding Nick Smith Jr.'s health. He did miss 19 games, more than half the season. He never got into a flow or rhythm to have the kind of efficiency and a consistent impact that was expected and projected. But those are things I think that he can improve upon some of that slide. I haven't seen a mock draft that's got him out, any lower or any worse than 16 or 17. Talking about Nick Smith Jr., but for a guy that was projected top 5, it's definitely a bit of a slide. I'm still seeing projections inside the top 10 between that 5 and 10 mark, and really, some in between 10 and 15. If you're the 1 through 14 are technically lottery, that's still the lottery range. And then I haven't seen him, but maybe in a couple mocks just outside of that, as no lower than 17. So, and both of those players right now have projections that are in those ranges. But I'm not surprised by it. I think both of them, barring some other major setback, I think both of them are locked into that top 20 as far as where it stands today. We'll see what happens with both. They'll go through whatever, they'll be invited to the combine, the NBA draft combine. They'll have individual workouts with teams. There'll be other, their agencies will have workouts that they set up. So there'll be all kinds of stuff that teams are going to learn about these players moving forward. But both of those guys continue to be top 15, top 20 first round draft projections.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see where both of those end up. Kev, we always talk recruiting on this show. Talking to your people, I'm sure Muss and everybody's been very busy. What are you hearing?
Well, Arkansas is hitting the portal hard and heavy. We know Bayfall and Leighton Blocker, the 2 5-stars, guard and center, that Arkansas signed in the early period out of high school, but now it's portal season. We've just talked about some of the names that are leaving, one that's coming back, and maybe more that are going to jump in there. I expect Arkansas will have other players that will enter the portal, maybe sooner rather than later, but Arkansas is definitely going to bring players into the portal. I believe Arkansas could have as many as 2 committed players right now, maybe up to 4. The coaching staff has already had visitors in. Cameron Hunter, an in-state player that's played the last 2 years at UCA, has been all-conference when you look back at the last 2 seasons, an all-conference player playing for the University of Central Arkansas Bears, averaged 17 points a game last year to lead that team. Has experience playing in Bud Walton Arena as a freshman. UCA lost to Arkansas, but he had a fairly good game in that game. Scored 12 points, had 4 steals, 5 rebounds, a couple of assists. But he's a guy that Arkansas has already had on campus for an unofficial visit a couple of weeks ago. Freddie Hicks, another in-state player, 6'5", 6'6", very athletic. Another guy that 16 points a game at Division I Tarleton State. He's a junior, but he took a visit to Arkansas. Arkansas coaches have fanned out. Now, it's a dead period. The dead period started late this past week, and it runs through the 6th. So there's not visitors coming in or coaches going out right now, but Arkansas has already been out on the road. Quincy Olivari, a 6'2" guard out of Rice, a volume scorer, a volume three-point shooter, efficient, to over 250 threes. He's a grad, 250 career threes at Rice. And shooting at a 38% clip on that. So the volume, efficiency, he averaged nearly 19 points a game last season, nearly 6 rebounds a game. That's a strong rebounder for a 6'2" guard. Reminds me a little bit of a J.D. Notae kind of player because he will slash to the basket, he'll hit the glass, a hard-nosed guy, but I think his efficiency and his catch and shoot game from 3 are even better than what J.D. brought to the table. Not exactly the same kind of player, but maybe similar value. So that's a guy that Arkansas has been to see. There are some other players our Arkansas coach has been out to see or done Zoom meetings with. And I think we're going to start getting some real momentum again in terms of current Hogs either announcing that they're testing draft waters or just going to go on the draft and not come back. And then there's going to be some transfer portal news as well coming and going. And I think we're going to really get some momentum on some of those announcements in the next week or two.
Yeah, absolutely, Kev. Kev, we appreciate all your time today. We hope that everybody that you know and love is okay down there in Little Rock. We're thinking about you guys. We appreciate you jumping on. We know you only have so much phone battery with very few places to plug in at the moment, but we're going to go to break. More Pig Trail Show after this.